resilience building, and the prevention of violent extremism through education and youth empowerment in Africa. Before we actually start the meeting, there are just a few technical aspects we would like to go through with all of you in order for this to be a smooth webinar, as we will use tools, Zoom, Mentimeter, and also the Jamboard. So just a very quick and brief overview on how to use the Jamboard and the Mentimeter. In terms of the Mentimeter, I will also be sharing my screen similar to what is happening right now. And you will have to go to our website, www.menti.com, and enter the following code. And finally, and then once you will have access to the Mentimeter presentation, you will be presented with a question that will be on your screen. And we will ask you to answer said question that you will see on your screen with a few keywords. So very self-explanatory, but if you have any other questions or need technical assistance, or you can also very much answer the question that you will see on your screen on the chat using Zoom. Regarding the using Jamboard, same idea. I will also be projecting my screen, and you will see in front of you a digital whiteboard. On said digital whiteboard, you will see a very specific question, which we'll also ask you to answer either through post-its or also through the chat on Zoom, whichever is most comfortable for you. In terms of technical aspects regarding the webinar, so regarding camera, microphone, and question and answers. So for optimal viewing of the webinar, we kindly invite you to mute yourselves and refrain from activating your camera, particularly if you know that you will encounter internet connectivity issues. And if you have any questions for the panelists, please do not hesitate to do so using the chat button on the bottom of your screen. Regarding interpretation, if you do require interpretation is available in Arabic or French. So for example, if you're a French speaker and you need interpretation, kindly go down to the globe on your Zoom panel, click the language that you desire, in this particular case, French, and you also have the option of muting the original audio. This will make it a little bit easier for you to hear the interpreter instead of the original language. And finally, we have a child safeguarding policy that we employ throughout the whole 3 days of this particular webinar in order to ensure that we have a safe and inclusive space for all participants at the event. So if anyone is under the age of 18, we kindly ask you to rename yourselves only by your first name. And if there are any questions on this particular regarding safeguarding in general, please, you do not hesitate to direct them to me. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone will have a fruitful and good webinar and will able to learn a lot today. Back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Davier. Thank you for those technical observations. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending again on where you are. My name is Saliu Sal. I'm the Senior Program Coordinator of Unesco IGBA. And I will be moderating this webinar of the day 2, because we had a session, a very successful session yesterday, and today we are engaging day 2. The topic, as you know, is transformative pedagogy for peace, resilience building, and prevention of violent extremism through education and empowerment. But today's session will be focusing on experience sharing between youth, experts, and policy makers. For the format of the webinar, we'll first have opening and welcome session, followed by an intergenerational chat, youth leader and an expert invited to that. We'll have keynote. An open plenary discussion will be the final stage of this session, moderated by Eleonora and Jerusalem. But of course, in between we have the Mentimeter. But before going any further, I am kindly inviting our director, the director of Unesco IGBA, Dr. Yumiko Yokozeki, to provide us with her welcome remark. Dr. Yumiko, you with us?
Yes, thank you very much, Saliu. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well and see you.
Very good. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bonjour and bonsoir, assalamu alaikum, sabah al-khair, and sabah al-nur. Ms. Annette Kajura, Assistant Commissioner of Teacher Education Training and Development Department of Ministry of Education and Sports of Uganda, Professor Kazu Yoshida, Director of the Center for the Study of International Cooperation, and our dear friend, Professor Emeritus Amul Abdallah, the United Nations mandated University of Peace, who is going to give us a keynote today. And Madame Mary Kangati, Kenyan National Commission for UNESCO, and our dear friends, Mr. Richard Francis, youth delegates from Arigato International, and both Mary and Richard are going to present the chants. It is my singular honor to welcome all the participants to the second day of the Pan-African Online Experience Sharing Meeting, focusing on transformative pedagogy for peace, resilience building, and the prevention of violent extremism in Africa. We are very excited to have this 3-day experience sharing session with the support of the government of Japan under the project called Prevention of Extremism and its Resurgence amid the COVID-19 pandemic through education in Africa, aligned with the spirit of TICAD 7 and NAPSA. Yesterday, we heard from amazing young people, youth delegates from different African countries, and also from participants. And it is about their experience and ideas for applying the transformative approaches. It was truly inspiring and encouraging to learn how youth leaders and educational practitioners who took part in our programs continue working on transforming their education and the peace-building initiatives in their respective countries and communities. Today, the second day of the experience sharing meeting is dedicated to intergenerational dialogues. This is another stimulating session for us to hold an open conversation, inviting young people as well as policymakers and practitioners to explore what works, what doesn't, where the entry points are, and how we can generate more positive changes. This intergenerational dialogue is particularly important for us as an institute of UNESCO. UNESCO seeks to build a peace through international cooperation in education, science, culture, and communication, with a belief that political and economic measures are not enough to secure the lasting and sincere support for the people. Peace must be founded on the dialogue and mutual understanding, upon the intellectual and moral solidarity of humanity. I would like to remind all of us the very famous sentence, the preamble of UNESCO Constitution, which reads, "Since world starts in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that defenses of peace must be constructed." I trust that today's session will be as fruitful and as exciting and as thought-provoking as yesterday, and it will give us some insight for some policy directions and strategies. I look forward to the active participation of all who joined today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Saliu.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yumiko, for this very insightful remark and for insisting on the relevance of intergenerational dialogue and the importance of building the defense of peace in the minds of women and men. So thank you very much. Now I'm handing over to Ms. Annette Kajura. Ms. Annette Kajura is the Assistant Commissioner of Teacher Education Training and Development Department at the Ministry of Education and Sport in Uganda. Ms. Annette, if you are with us, I am really delighted to give you the floor. Ms. Annette.
Thank you very much, Sari. Can you hear me?
It's okay. Yes, I can hear you and see you.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, protocol observed, because our senior Dr. Yumiko Yokozetki, our senior in Icuba, has already mentioned all the protocol and all the honor levels in this meeting. I am privileged to be here this afternoon and share with all of you, and most importantly, to talk about peace. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know that even if you have a lot of money, even if you have everything, if you don't have peace, anything that you plan, it cannot be achieved. So this afternoon, when we have support from ICUBA to bring us together to share strategies of how we can coexist, I really thank you very much and thank Jerusalem and the team for organizing this meeting this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all born peaceful. We are born in the picture of God. And that means if we are born in the picture of God, we are supposed to love one another. But as we grow up, there are many things that happen. Many people fuel us with so many bad things. And if we don't look at it and stop it on the way before it grows, it comes into confusion, violence, and all that you can call it. And therefore, peace education and prevention of violence extremism is a strategy that should be supported by everyone and all of us when we sit down and we draw strategies of how to minimize this. I take this one as a pleasure and something that we should all take as a very important break that each one of us is putting on the world, especially focusing on sub-Saharan Africa. You all know that all the fueled extremism that usually goes in the youth has ended up affecting all the countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Many people have been affected, but you agree with me that countries in sub-Saharan Africa, we have suffered more. There's a lot that we should have achieved by now, but because this confusion usually comes in and starts with the youth, we end up missing many things. Education is the only strategy that we can look at. And for us in Uganda, we think that the best can be done beginning with teacher educators, because teacher educators are not only agents, but they are also exemplary of teachers. And teachers are the people who are in a place where they handle all brackets of where we have youth. So if we empower our teachers to make youth know that it is much better to live in peace than living in violence, than taking that little money, that little convict that is fueled by a wrong person, then we shall have achieved a lot. And therefore we have focused on the strategies that can improve the way one can live with a person he or she thinks does not love him and can cause confusion, which later causes a lot of distractions of even the little that you would have got. So we think that teachers should be empowered, and therefore we have embarked on transformative pedagogy, the pedagogy that makes youth love education, the pedagogy that makes youth know how to coexist so that there is no fighting now and then. And ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon I call upon you that whatever strategy that you think we can share for the good of our Africa, first of all, and then after Africa, because they say peace begins with you. And when you have peace, and you'll be able to give it to the neighbor. So if Africa is peaceful, then we should be able to also sell our peace to our neighbors. And therefore, I call upon everyone to give us any strategy, share with us any idea, share with us anything that we can empower with the teachers, so that the teachers will bring the youth to understand that when they are empowered and when they are busy doing something that is useful other than fighting or bombing each other, that will be great. I wish everybody a good deliberation and a good discussion, and for the good of my country, I am happy to be here, and I welcome everyone that is in this meeting in this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Annette Kajura. Thank you for insisting on the critical role of peace, because without peace, nothing is possible, of course. And thank you for the commitment from Uganda to keep supporting the fight that is the only fight that is worth waging, which is peace building together with prevention of violent extremism, with full involvement of teachers. Thank you very much again. Now, I'm going to kindly invite Professor Kazuhiro Yoshida, Director of the Center for the Study of International Cooperation in Education at Hiroshima University, who will make us the honor to give a speech, to deliver an address. Professor Yoshida.
Thank you, Aliu. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Annette Kajura, Ministry of Education and Sports of Uganda. Madam Mary Kangete, Kenya National Commission for Unesco. Mr. Richard Francis and Ms. Eleonora Mura, Arigato International. Professor Emeritus Amrul Abdallah of UPeace. My dearest friends at Unesco Ikuba and wonderful youth experts, practitioners, and policymakers, all the participants, good afternoon, or whatever the appropriate greeting at your time zone. As kindly introduced, I am Kazuhiro Yoshida, or Kazu Yoshida, a director of Center for the Study of International Cooperation and Education, Hiroshima University. Until last year, I also served as co-chair of EFA and SDG 4 Global Steering Committee together with UNESCO. And I'm also a member of Japanese NATCOM for UNESCO. And thank you very much for inviting me to join today's important meeting. Over the last 5 or 6 years, my center have had the pleasure of working with Ikuba and organized the training program on the theme of teacher training and the development for peace in Africa. The title has been evolved every year, which illustrates its focus, including the keywords teachers, obviously, youth empowerment, peace and resilience building, preventing violent extremism, and more recently, to face the COVID-19 pandemic. These show strong and lasting determination of UNESCO Ikuba for its contribution to Africa through education and the trusting roles of teachers and youth. And this in turn reflects tireless passion of Director Yumiko Yokozeki, whom I deeply respect. She has dedicated almost all her professional life for Africa's education. I sincerely want to send a big round of applause. Before the pandemic restricted our mobility, the training program participants have had a chance to visit Hiroshima and participate in Peace Memorial Ceremony on the 6th of August, which is to renew the global commitment for peace. And this year, UN Secretary General Mr. Guterres personally joined and delivered his message. Now, the 3-day meeting of experience sharing is entitled Transforming Pedagogy for Peace, Resilience Building, and Preventing Violent Extremism Through Education and Youth Empowerment in Africa. For transforming a pedagogy to be effective, we need to discuss, share what to inform, for what to inform, and who will inform. Most importantly, transformation has to start with transformation of ourselves by reassessing our strengths, untapped potentials, and critically review what we have been doing and do what we need to do. I fully echo that roles of youth and teachers at all stages from decision-making and actions are essential. I believe seeds that have been sowed by UNESCO Ikuba are now growing firmly, sprouting, and will produce fruits, delicious fruits that everyone can enjoy. This is possible by bringing in collaborative work of all of us. And I trust today's meeting will make a further headway through your active participation. I really look forward to your active participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much, Professor Yoshida. I think you are the very one deserving that round of applause. So virtually, I invite everybody to join me for the round of applause. Thank you very much for always accompanying IGBA over the 5 years in the development of projects on peace building, resilience, and prevention of violent extremism. Actually, your role in this journey has really been very, very critical, no matter what the positions you have held. So thank you for helping us plant the seed and helping us entertain the tree, and the fruit will be soon collected. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you. So now we're going to give the floor to, Professor Yoshida was the last but not least speakers of this group session. We now requesting everybody to turn on their video so that we can take that group picture. Maybe Eleonora can help on that.
Yes, thank you, Sal. Yes, so if everybody can turn on the video slowly, and also bear with us with some patience because we have 3 pages of participants. So me and Xavier will be taking some screenshots. So thank you very much. Thank you for turning on your video for the group picture. Okay. Oh. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we can move on with the program, Sal. Over to you.
It's okay?
Yes, we have taken the shots. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eleonora, and thank you, our dear seniors, for those very insightful remarks. Now we're going to the second session of this webinar. This second session is really the heart of the webinar, which is on intergenerational chat. For that session, we have invited Mrs. Mary Kangete from the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO, and Mr. Richard Francis, a youth delegate at Arigato International, for an interactive active chat between a young leader and an expert. So I am kindly inviting Mrs. Mary and Mr. Richard to join us. Mrs. Mary, I can see her. Mr. Richard is also there. So thank you very much, dear colleagues and friends, for being present. So I am going to start with this first of the set of questions to both of you. Maybe I'll start with Mary. Could you please briefly share about your experience as a champion of transformative peace programs empowering young people? Share briefly about your experience as a champion in transformative peace programs empowering young people. Mary?
Okay, thank you so much, Saliu, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, to acknowledge my seniors who have spoken, Professor Yoshida, who has been my teacher in the past, Dr. Yumiko, my colleague from Uganda, and all the other speakers who have spoken before me. I'm indeed very grateful to be speaking about this topic, and especially at this very moment when Kenya is going through a very important season, the electioneering period, and I'm sure you are aware of what is transpiring, and I'm happy that we have kept calm. Our youth have kept calm, and we are hoping that this will continue up to the time when we begin the process, when we end the process. So coming to what I am expected to respond to about my experience, I want to begin by saying that my experience on matters transformative pedagogy for youth in peace building is more in the structured settings, that is in the universities, in colleges, and in schools with young children in primary and in secondary schools, and even the very young ones who are in our early learning centers. Then the focus of the initiatives I have been involved in are mainly through formal and out of classroom activities, where we use the formal curriculum to integrate elements of peace building and also complement that with out of class activities. The structured setting provides an opportunity for reaching out to many young people in a systematic way. And therefore, in my view, all pilots, all informal programs that are carried out, they need to find their way, or the lessons learned in these programs need to find their way in formal settings, because this is where we can reach young people in a very structured way. We can also reach them early and in a very systematic and consistent manner. I want to say that we have a very good experience where in Kenya we are implementing the competency-based curriculum that underscores acquisition of knowledge, nurturing of values, and development. And also we provide opportunities for learners to practically experience what they are learning in the school through what we are calling community service learning. And we are very focused on skills. Right now we have moved up to our grade 6, who are actually ready for some way of assessment. And we have learned a lot in the process. And this is a way of trying to, of adopting, let me not say trying, but of adopting transformative pedagogies on a large scale. I want to say we've done well in small scale, but the challenge comes when you want to mainstream it on a large scale. Young people embrace transformative pedagogy. I think this was said by our speaker, who said that young people enjoy transformative pedagogy. And things that have gone on very well as we work with young people on transformative pedagogy is to see the personal empowerment through not just learning what transformative pedagogies are, but through experience and internalization of what they are expected to learn, and seeing the behavior change that emerges from experiences with transformative pedagogy. And especially where you interact with the young people, you put them through activities, you give them opportunities to talk, you demystify the role of the teacher so that they are not seen as the owners of knowledge, but there is collaborative learning between the teachers and the learners. The agency of young people and giving them the opportunity not just to be people who listen and who are trained on how to improve our lives, but they become agents of transforming our society, and seeing them through learning institutions, transforming their own communities. That's really empowering. The interest that it generates whenever we are implementing transformative pedagogy on a small scale, and we are probably focusing on a small group in a school, every other young person clamors to join this kind of initiative. Currently, we are doing psychosocial support, and we have seen that. Then it is a relationship between teachers and youth. I think I have said this, and I want to stop there. Over to you, Salim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary, for that rich, very rich experience. And of course, it is very important to help young people get involved in that transformation. And Richard will not say the contrary. Richard, over to you for that question.
Thank you so much, Sally. And thank you, Mary, for sharing this wonderful experience from this Kenyan setting. And of course, more from the former structure setting sector. And thank you to Arigato International and UNESCO IGBA for organizing this experience sharing section and for finding it important to include this very important aspect of intergenerational chat around the issues of transformative pedagogy or transformative peace building process. I've been very opportune from a very long time to engage in the transformative pedagogic process, either through my formation with the Learning to Live Together program of Arigato International, or the process engaged in the development of the youth guide on the on countering violence and promoting peace building of UNESCO IGBA, which we today talk about the transformative pedagogy. I've been quite involved in both in the development process, but also in the using of the tools in different levels and in different situations. And like I mentioned, unlike Mary, I come more from the non-formal sector, even though I've been involved in a lot of policy dialogue around setting structures that provide spaces for youth engagement and youth involvement in decision-making processes around different thematic issues, but more specifically on peace-building process. My role specifically has been to work with non-formal youth organizations in a structured dialogue format to see how we engage them in reflecting on the issues that confront them or that they are confronted with each day of their life, what role they play and what actions as individuals they take, but also on a collective level. So this has been my experience over the last 10 years with different youth organizations around the world. And in very recent time, earlier this year, we worked together with the support of Erasmus Plus to put together a network of young peace builders around the world, because we know that one of the challenges that young people face is the aspect of peer support, or the aspect of support, that sometimes the supports are limited from the decisions makers or those who have the capacity to support their work. And so how do we look at these challenges that each of us face in the work that we do in our various contexts and in our various countries, and see how through the peer support mechanisms, we can help each other to navigate the difficulties that we face. Though the challenges might differ in a different context, of course, but some of the tools that we use in different contexts can also be a helpful way to help young people not to reinvent the wheel, but also to channel their energy in a more productive way to work. So this network has been set with over 50 young people from different countries who are working together, creating those spaces of engagement and discussions, but also sharing of experiences. One thing that the transformative pedagogy has been very inspiring, I would say, for me, using this tool, it's not just about helping to transform the young people that we work with, but you yourself getting transformed in the process. And so each time that I use the tool, there is that sense that I feel empowered and I feel strengthened to continue to go on. Because the work that we do, sometimes we are confronted with the fact that you continue to do the same thing, or you continue to make effort to make the world better, but the world doesn't get better because you see new conflicts emerging in different parts of the world. This can be very disempowering. This can be very exhausting. And so sometimes you feel helpless in the process. And so using the transformative pedagogy not only help you to deal with these different issues that continue to emerge, but also empowers and encourages you to continue to work as time goes. One thing that I would like to say and that remain clear to many of us is that in addition to the immense experiences and the expertise that young people bring on board when we invite them to participate in the peace building process, is the total commitment and the interest to engage that they come with, the passion that they have in whatever they engage with. So how do we leverage on those passion and those commitments that they bring? I would say that it's no longer news that young people play a very important role. We have said it over and over, most of you from the speakers who spoke today, but also the speakers from yesterday, that the role that they play is very important. And I think we have to maintain that we need to continue to engage them. This will not only help to redirect the energies that young people have into implementing constructive peace projects, but it will also help to facilitate transformation of the young people from becoming available agents of conflict or violent conflict to becoming very useful tools for a constructive peace process. I'll leave it at this for now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard. 10 years of experience already, I would say. Thank you for engaging youth through social dialogue. Dialogue is the best means to engage people. Of course, you're right. It's a question of giving and receiving also. You transform, but you are transformed also. So you have anticipated a little bit to the second question, which is about the challenges. I will continue with you, Richard. What are the main challenges you encountered and how did you overcome them? So tell us more about that.
Thank you very much, Ali, again, for giving me the space. I think one of the major challenge in my work or in the work that I've been doing over these years is a question of access. How do we broaden the access? Today, when we talk about youth engagement, we're looking about engagement with young people within the formal sector, which means young people who are either being educated already or young people who are in professional life. So somehow they are informed and have the capacity to engage. So how do we broaden this engagement to go beyond youth in the youth in the formal sector, to reach out to youth in the informal sector, the youth in the local community, in the villages who may not have all the access and opportunity that those young people in the formal sector have. The second thing is also that young people have varieties of challenges that confront them. Which is far different from what today's adults did face during their youthful age. So most of these challenges that they are faced with, from climate change, from mental health issues, from poverty, lack of employment, and all the other issues that you would like to mention, continue to draw on their attentions and also affect their stability in life. So when you bring them to engage in a process, each of these issues play an important role. And so how do we use those tools to help them to rechannel or to focus their attention on really working together to build a better society despite all these different challenges? And one of the ways we try to tackle this is to broaden the space of participation. So not just keeping participation in the schools, but also meeting the young people where they are. So either in the IDP, in the villages, in community, where the formal sectors don't really have a lot of spaces or are not really very active, to see how we can bring those young people also and create an opportunity for them to participate at their level. Because we think that the levels are different, the sensitivities are different, the context realities are different. We need to also be able to diversify the approach that we use in engaging each of these young people. And this is what we've been doing with the organization Edu for Future, to see how those engagement process broadening. Again, one of the maybe a last thing I would like to mention is the fact that today, when we talk about peace and conflict resolution process, we're looking at about ending in signing peace agreement. But I think there's more to do in order to build lasting peace, other than just resolving to signing an agreement between heads of state. There need to be a way that young people are really integrated in the construction process, I would say, to see how peace building process leads to social change, and those social change needs to look at the different realities that people face in society. And today we don't talk of inclusion just for the purpose of feeding the statistical space that these demographics are represented in the discussion, but because they bring actual contribution and actual expertise into the discussion, and that their participation in the process would assure that the result or the outcome of that process is sustainable. And this is why young people need to be on the table, not just because you need to take the bus, which is what we do today. And when we do this approach, I think we create a two scenario, a us versus them, because it's the adult world and it's the youth world. Young people are in their own circle, in their own bubble, doing their own thing. And if you want to take the bus, you bring one or two to fill the space. No, we need to see a youth engagement that's more meaningful, that is really engaging in all the processes to ensure that also the issues that confront them are brought into the dialogue table, and that decisions that are made as an outcome of peace building process also reflect those sensitivities and realities that young people face.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The challenges are huge, but as they say, where there is a will, there is a way. And also,
indeed, yeah.
What you do for me without me is against me. That's what you were expressing. So, Mary, tell me more about that.
Mary, you are muted.
Yes.
So thank you so much for bringing out those elements. I just want to focus also on some of the challenges that we have met, and I want to call them tensions. Because these are things, they actually prompt us. It's like bringing in an uncomfortable situation to prompt us to act in a different way. And one of the questions that I would want to talk about is the adoption of transformative pedagogies versus approaches that are predominantly cognitive. And I think this is an issue of methodology. And I know we have continuously worked with the teachers. It is basically a change, or it calls for a change of in the ways that teachers do their work. And we appreciate that having done their work in a certain way, then we do not expect that they will just change, after we do like a 1 week training, but it's constantly engaging with them and giving them feedback and, working with them and supporting them so that they can be able to adopt the new transformative pedagogy. What we have done in Kenya is develop champion teachers who motivate and show the other teachers that, yes, it can be done. And I think we have seen when it comes from their peers, the teachers are more willing to put more effort, to work more on themselves so that they can adopt the transformative pedagogy. The other tension that I want to talk about is structures versus promoting leadership. And this is what Richard has talked about when he was talking about what level of participation are we allowing young people to have. And the structure of education in the way it is, it's quite hierarchical, and especially amongst teachers and the learners, and youth being learners most of the times, then you find some tensions around what level of leadership do we allow our youth in the classroom as they do their activities, and to what extent can the teacher withstand this leadership from the learners without feeling like they want to control it, without feeling threatened by it, but allowing it to flow and guiding it whenever necessary. So this again calls for continuous support and capacity building of our teachers. The role of young people also in transformative pedagogy, and more importantly, the role of young teachers. And we are increasingly seeing the very significant role that our young teachers are playing, and especially as we look at integrating ICT and digital learning into how we deliver transformative pedagogy. So I think I need to recognize this the very unique role of young teachers, who sometimes are seen in a school as people who are just learning, but are not given a leadership role, but they have very critical capacities that we can leverage on for transformative pedagogy. And finally, I want to say that sometimes reaching the vulnerable and those in emergency situations with transformative pedagogy, which are really needed for them to bounce back, becomes a challenge, and especially responding to emergency situations. I want to say we have tried to also integrate transformative pedagogies as we do psychosocial support. We did a major response after COVID-19 in our informal settlement, and integration of transformative pedagogies in the psychosocial support intervention really was really appreciated by the learners. Actually, when we went there, they thought we were going to do counseling, and learners do not seem to be they do not respond very well to counseling, especially if it is not self-initiated. But when they saw that it was actually about going through transformative pedagogy for well-being, they were really excited. So I want to say this is a tension that we need to break, how we respond in emergency situations and transform these young people who are already so wounded, who are already so hurt, into agents of peace. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you very much,
maybe just to add very quickly to what Mary said about the role of young teachers.
Please, Richard.
Yes, yeah, I just also wanted to highlight the role of the youth associations and the youth support structure in society, in addition to the role of the young teacher, because this is more about the peer-to-peer or the community that they can better relate with. So we need to also highlight this important role that these associations, youth support structure in the community play to bring about transformative effect or transformative process in the young people. Yeah.
Yes, to reinforce the role of school in the community. So thank you very much, Mary, for bringing about those reluctancy which is related to every innovation, but creating enabling environment to address those people and to engage them in the process. Finally, you have the last question in 2 minutes each, maybe 1 minute 30 seconds. Give us 3 strategic recommendations for the way forward. I start with Mary first.
Okay, strategies for way forward from where I sit, make transformative pedagogies part and parcel of teaching and learning. I think that's a challenge for all of us, and especially the African countries, as we struggle with our big classes, we don't have adequate teachers. But I think this is something we are now moving to the Transforming Education Summit. And I think this is one area I want to see our ministers commit to, our heads of state commit to as we go to the UNGA, that we want to mainstream transformative pedagogy. And it is a brave, it is a challenging but a brave decision that we need to make. Modifying learning spaces to make them more appealing to young people and even more effective for peace building. Because when we use traditional approaches, then this doesn't work. Leveraging on young teachers, I think I have already implied that. Demystifying the professional role of the teacher, reduce the gap and support collaborative learning between teachers and young people, and making teachers, helping teachers to feel comfortable with appearing not to know, so that we can continue learning from one another. And especially at this time when young people are so exposed in different ways, and especially through digital platforms. Gender responsive pedagogies to promote gender inclusivity. And I think is one of the transformative pedagogies that we also need to continue popularizing. And again, like I finished earlier on, I think looking and strengthening the place of transformative pedagogies in emergency settings and among the vulnerable. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think those are very relevant strategies for the way forward. Richard?
Yeah,
how about you?
Thank you, Saliu, and thank you, Mary, for this wonderful strategy that you proposed. And I think mine would be just to support the point that Mary already said. but also to recommend that as we work in our various contexts, because again, as I mentioned earlier, the context may differ, but as we work in those different contexts to put in place peace building initiative, it is important that the formal sector, which is the ministries of education or the government, needs to put in place adequate educational infrastructures and systems or even employment opportunities and other structures through which young people can be active participants in decision-making process concerning their well-being, but also concerning the society at large. That's one aspect that I would like to see. A second aspect that I think it's also very important is the need to enhance the structures that promote the participation of young people in peace building processes. So if there are actions that have been taken around peace process in your countries already in conflict resolution settings, they need to be young people really involved at every stage of it, not just to be brought at the very end or at some point to tick the box, as I said earlier, but they need to be involved, because this will help them to not only actively contribute to their engagement with decisions, but also in the activities that would affect their well-being in the long run. And then the last but not the least would be in the area of policies and institutions, which needs to enable, we need policies and institutions that enables investment in children and young people to succeed both at the micro and the macro level. And this can take the form of multi-sectoral programs that target young people in specific areas, in emergency settings, and in different contexts. And this can include creating an employment opportunity or even involving in peace building projects in their community. Because I think peace is all encompassing, and it's not just the absence of war, but also ensuring that people's well-being are guaranteed. And this is the only way to ensure that peace can be lasting. So every peace building decisions and process, we need to take into account these structures and policies that ensures the well-being of every young person, but of course the adult. We are not living in an exclusive society, so those policies needs to come in place. And I thank you for the opportunity to share my view in this dialogue, and thank you, Mary, for the wonderful insights and the work that you continue to do.
I really thank both of you, Mary and Richard, for this very interactive intergenerational chat. And I hope that all participants have enjoyed listening to you and have taken very, very important lessons from your insightful ideas. Thank you very much. And participants have started interacting with you in the chat. So thank you very much. We now go to the next session, which is the Mentimeter. I think Xavier is with us. Xavier?
Yes, yes. Okay, as progressing from Ms. Mary Cangete's and Mr. Richard's intervention, I could ask everyone to go to www.menti.com and use the code that you see on your screen. So 9126-7489, 9126-7489, and respond to the following question. So in 2 or 3 words, how can we foster more youth engagement and peace building in education today? In 2 or 3 words, how can we foster more youth engagement and peace building in education today? You may use, you may go to the Mentimeter directly, or you can also answer via the chat on Zoom. Well, we can spend the next 2 to 3 minutes on this particular question, which is a nice way to wrap up this particular section of the webinar.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate what Xavier said, in case you are uneasy with the Mentimeter, you can write in the chat and we will be uploading it in the Mentimeter survey. So please feel free to use both options. I see the chat is populating. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I see there is a lot of excitement and participation, and the Mentimeter is quickly populating. I would ask Xavier to please leave the Mentimeter on our screens while Sal can proceed with inviting the next contributor to the experience sharing. Over to you, Sal.
Okay, thank you very much, Eleonora. Thank you, Xavier, and thank you, participants, for your very active involvement. Now, I'm going to invite Professor Emeritus Amr Abdallah from the United Nations Mandated University for Peace to give us the keynote. Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor Sal, and everyone for inviting me to have the honor to speak to everyone. In coordination with the organizers, I asked if I should speak in English or in Arabic today. And actually the recommendation was to reflect the diversity of Africa by speaking in Arabic. So if you allow me, I will continue my presentation in Arabic. And I thought I started.
Please go ahead, yes.
Yeah, just to give you a chance to everyone to set up that interpretation. So I'll give you a couple of seconds for everyone to figure out where the interpretation is and to select the interpretation from Arabic. فمساء الخير على الجميع والسلام عليكم على الجميع. شرف كبير لي أن أستمر في هذا العمل الرائع مع أريجاتو ومع يونسكو إكبا في أفريقيا لدعم السلام من خلال التعليم التحويلي. كان لي الشرف أن أعمل في هذا المشروع ربما منذ بدء جائحة كورونا، منذ بدايات عام 2020. فهذا هو العام الثالث من العمل مع هذا المشروع. وفي هذه الجلسة أود أن أتحدث في 3 ركائز. أولا سأتحدث عن تأملات عن تجربة ال3 سنوات، ثم سأتحدث عن بعض الأساسيات التي تم وضعها للتعليم التحويلي وكيفية تأثيره الإيجابي على الشباب. ثم أخيرا سأتحدث عن تطلعات للمستقبل. بالنسبة لتأملاتي عن التجربة، كما ذكرت بدأت من حوالي 3 سنوات، وأنا أعتقد أننا جميعا هو الذين اشتركنا في هذا العمل قد تعلمنا الكثير. أعجبني جدا عندما قال ريتشارد أن التعليم التحويلي ليس فقط الهدف منه التأثير أو العمل على إحداث تغيير في الآخرين، إنما التغيير الأساسي هو أن يحدث التغيير لنا نحن. وأنا أعتقد أن التجربة نفسها، تجربة العمل في هذا المشروع، قد أحدثت الكثير من التغيير لي أنا شخصيا وللزميلات والزملاء في كل المؤسسات التي اشتركت معنا. ربما من يعني أحد أمثلة هذا التغيير هو إدراك أن هناك الكثير من التعددية في الظروف المتعلقة بالسلام في أفريقيا، وحتى لو نظرنا في شمال أفريقيا حيث كان معظم عملي مع هذا المشروع، نجد أن هذا التنوع أيضا كان موجود. نوعية العنف الموجود في بعض الأماكن، نوعية دعم السلام وكيف يمكن دور المرأة وكيف يمكن أن يختلف، ودور الشباب طبعا، وطبيعة المدارس الموجودة من بلد إلى آخر. كل هذا كان له أثر طيب جدا في إدراك مدى التعددية. وفي أحد الأوقات يعني أعتقد كان من النتائج الإيجابية لذلك هو إدراك في البداية كنا نعمل باستخدام دليل تدريبي كان قد تم تصميمه في منطقة الساحل في أفريقيا. وطبعا مع الوقت أدركنا أهمية أن نصمم دليل تدريبي لشمال أفريقيا بالتحديد، وأن نتبع نفس المنهجية في دليل الساحل. وأعتقد أننا نجحنا إلى درجة كبيرة في أن نصمم دليل تدريبي قد ركز على أنواع العنف وتوجهات السلام الملائمة لواقع شمال أفريقيا، مع الأخذ في الاعتبار التعددية والتنوع الموجود في هذه المنطقة. أعتقد أن تصميم هذا الدليل وإشراك الأساتذة والأستاذات في تصميمه كان لهم دور جيد جدا في جعل هذا التصميم واقعي وملائم لظروفنا. من الناحية الأخرى كان الجهد الأكبر في العمل الذي قمنا به كان تركيزه على الأقل من في إطار ما كان لي الشرف أن أسهم به في هذا المشروع، هو العمل مع المدرسين والمدرسات والمسؤولين في الإدارات التعليمية في بلاد مختلفة في شمال أفريقيا. وفي هذا الإطار فطبعا وجدنا أن هناك أساسيات كانت يجب أن نتأكد من وجودها ومن ترسيخها لدى القائمين على العمل في المدارس. ولو أن يسمح لي أن أشارك أود أن أعرض بعض الشرائح متعلقة بالعمل الذي قمنا به. من خلال المجهود الذي قمنا بعمله في شمال أفريقيا، فقد صممنا نموذج لكيفية دعم التعليم من أجل السلام وبناء الصمود resiliency والوقاية من العنف conflict prevention. وقد أسسنا ذلك على 4 أسس، هو تصميم برامج حساسة للسياق conflict sensitivity، وأن ندعم ثقافة السلام culture of peace، وأن نؤسس لقدرات المعلمين capacity building for teachers وأيضا أن يكون التوجه شامل a comprehensive holistic approach. من خلال ذلك فقد أسسنا في دليل التدريب وأيضا في الأنشطة التدريبية التي قمنا بها على دعم العاملين في المدارس من خلال تأصيل قدراتهم ومهاراتهم في تحليل النزاعات وكيفية التدخل فيها بشكل منهجي وبشكل علمي. وهذا في حد ذاته أنا أعتقد هنا يبدأ التغيير الحقيقي لدى الإنسان عندما ندرك كيف أن نحلل النزاعات وكيف أن ندرك مدى اشتراكنا كبشرية في عناصر من العوامل النفسية والعوامل الاجتماعية كلها متداخلة وهي تحدث في كل مجتمعات العالم لكل الأشخاص رغم تنوعهم واختلافهم. فهذا التحليل يساعدنا عن أن ندرك بعض العناصر الهامة التي تحدث داخلنا كإنسان وكمجتمع عندما نكون في حالة نزاع، وأيضا بناء على ذلك كيف يمكن أن نؤسس لأساليب تدخل سلمية ملائمة بناء على التحليل. من ناحية ثقافة السلام culture of peace، فهنا أيضا كان من الضروري أن ندعم منهجيتين أساسيتين. الأولى هي منهجية تعليم السلام peace education، وهذا طبعا يرتبط إلى درجة كبيرة بمنهجية التحويل أو المنهجية التحويلية، وأيضا تعليم المواطنة العالمية GCED Global Citizenship Education. نرى أن هذين المنهجيتين هم أساسين لثقافة السلام في أي مكان في العالم، ونبني عليهم إلى منهجية التحويلية أو المنهجية التحويلية في بناء قدرات المعلمين capacity building. وأنا أعتقد أن هنا كنا نرى فعلا هذا التحول يحدث لدى القائمين على العمل التدريسي في المدارس، إدراك أن هناك نماذج أخرى للتدريس من ممكن أن تكون ناجعة وناجحة ومؤثرة بشكل أكبر بكثير من الأساليب التقليدية المنتهجة إلى درجة كبيرة في معظم المدارس في شمال أفريقيا وسائر القارة. أعتقد أن المنهجية التحويلية وسأشرح بعض عناصرها الأساسية يعني كانت هي العنصر الأساسي في إحداث تغييرات إيجابية لدى المشتركين في هذه البرامج. ثم أخيرا، وهذا يرتبط أيضا بموضوع الشباب، هو التوجه الشامل الذي يجب أن يشتمل على دور الإدارة المدرسية وأيضا على إشراك المجتمع أيضا. وبناء على كل هذا التأسيس فطبعا المشروع كان له دور تطبيقي كبير، وأنا أعتقد أن في إعداد التطبيق لتنفيذ ما شرحته كان من الضروري أن يكون هناك نوع من الحلقة المتواصلة ما بين فهم متطلبات التطبيق وتعديلها بناء على حساسيات وسياق التطبيق، وبناء على ذلك يتم عمل المشروعات التي يمكن أن تجذب الشباب والتي يمكن أن تؤدي إلى تعديل في المنهجيات التعليمية بشكل إيجابي. كل هذا طبعا كان مطلوب منه أن يؤدي إلى بناء القدرة على الصمود لدى الشباب وتقوية مشاركتهم الإيجابية من خلال الدور الهام للمعلمين والمعلمات. ودور المعلمين والمعلمات طبعا له أوجه كثيرة تختلف عن التعليم التقليدي المبني على الحفظ. ومن أجل ذلك فإن هذا المشروع، وهنا يعني أود أن أنوه بتقديري الشديد لكل من عمل في هذا المشروع، في أنهم ساعدوا الأساتذة والأستاذات في أن يقوموا بعملهم بشكل مختلف من خلال التأسيس لمنهجيات محددة في إطار المنهجية التحويلية. على سبيل المثال فتح مساحات الحوار والنقاش في داخل الفصل وخارجه، بما يساعد الطلبة والطالبات على أن يدركوا أهمية آرائهم وأن يتعلموا آداب النقاش، آداب الحوار، وكيفية التعامل مع الآخرين رغم اختلاف الرأي. أيضا دعم رؤية وأفكار التلاميذ بخلاف الأسلوب المعتاد اللي هو أسلوب رأسي مبني على أن الأستاذ أو الأستاذة هم العالمين بالأمور وسوف يقررون للطلبة والطالبات ما يقومون به. نعكس هذه الصورة بأن نمكن الطلبة والطالبات من تقديم أفكارهم ورؤيهم في كيف ندير الأمور سواء داخل الفصل أو خارجه، ثم تأسيس المساحات الملائمة لهم لأداء عملهم بالفعل، ودعم قيادتهم، دعم قيادة التلاميذ، القيادة الإيجابية المبنية على الاحترام المتبادل بين التلميذ والطالب والأستاذ والأستاذة، وأيضا خلق مساحات للابتكار، للتفكير بشكل مختلف، كما نقول بالإنجليزية thinking out of the box، حتى يمكن للطالب والطالبة أن يبتدعوا نماذج جديدة لكيفية التعلم والتعليم، وأيضا إعطائهم حوافز والتفكير في حوافز ملائمة مناسبة لظروفهم ومناسبة للتنوع الموجود في مجتمعاتهم. وطبعا ضمان الاستمرارية، بمعنى يعني، وأعتقد وده ربما يكون إحدى مقترحاتي لهذا المشروع في الجزء الأخير من حديثي اليوم، هو كيف نضمن استمرارية مشروع من هذا النوع. وإشراك الأهالي والمجتمع، وأنا دائما كنت أذكر أن يعني بواقع أنني نفسي تعلمت في المدارس في مصر، في شمال أفريقيا، في المرحلة الابتدائية حتى الثانوية، وطبعا أدرك تماما أن دور الأهالي كاد يكون منعدما، باستثناء عندما يكون هناك مشكلة تحدث مع الطالب أو الطالبة ويتطلب الأمر استدعاء ولي الأمور. هنا فقط الأهالي كانوا يحضرون إلى المدرسة، لكن بخلاف ذلك الوجود الأهالي وإشراكهم في الأفكار متعلقة بإدارة المدرسة بأنشطة هو أمر لم يكن موجود، وأنا أتمنى أن هذا المشروع قد أسهم بشكل إيجابي في تغيير هذا التفكير. وإشراك الأهالي هو ليس الجزء الوحيد، إنما لابد من إشراك المجتمع بصفة عامة بمؤسساته المختلفة، سواء مؤسسات مثل الشرطة وأجهزة الإسعاف، وطبعا مؤسسات المجتمع المدني كلهم، ومؤسسات المرأة لهم دور كبير يجب أن يكون فعال داخل المدرسة وخارجها. ثم أيضا أن تستخدم أساليب تعليمية لها صلة بالواقع الطلبة أنفسهم، وكما ذكرت هذا الواقع متنوع، وأعتقد زميلنا ريتشارد تحدث عن هذا التنوع في حديثه. أعتقد أن مسألة تنوع الواقع مهمة جدا في إعداد مشروعات من هذا النوع، لأن من السهل أن نقع في فخ التعميم، أن نعمم ما نعتقد أن كل شمال أفريقيا مثل ذلك أو كل المسلمين مثل ذلك، وطبعا هذا خطأ فادح. وأنا أعتقد هذا المشروع أثبت إمكانية أن نصمم مقاربات وتوجهات ملائمة لواقع مختلف من مكان إلى آخر، وأن لا نقع في دائرة التعميم الخاطئ. وأخيرا تشجيع الطلبة والطالبات والشباب بالمشاركة بتجاربهم، وربما هذا يرجع لأساسيات التدريس في موضوعات السلام وحل النزاعات، أن أساس دراسات السلام وحل النزاعات مبني على أن كل إنسان صغير أو كبير لديهم خبرات في كيفية دعم السلام وكيفية الوقوع في النزاعات، وأن هذه الخبرات نفسها والتجارب ذات أهمية بالغة، وتشجيع المشاركة بها يثري المعرفة ويثري التجارب لدى الجميع. كل هذا تم عمله بشكل إيجابي على مدى 3 سنوات، والأعداد كبيرة من الأساتذة والأستاذات والقائمين على التعليم في بلاد شمال أفريقيا. وأعتقد ربما أن أذكر إحدى الدورات التي قمنا بها في شهر سبتمبر الماضي مع برضو عينة من الأستاذات والأساتذة من شمال أفريقيا، وكنا نتحدث عن كيفية تصميم بعض الأنشطة التي سوف تبرز استخدامهم لأساليب المنهجية التحويلية. وأنا أذكر أن في هذه الجلسة قررنا أن نتحدث عن بعض التحديات المهنية، the ethical challenges التي تواجه بعض القائمين على العمل المدرسي، ومن أجل أن نساعدهم على أن يتعاملوا مع موضوعات حقيقية في واقعهم، فقد عرضنا عليهم 3 نماذج لتحديات مهنية ممكن أن تحدث في أي مدرسة في شمال أفريقيا، وكنا نريد أن نرى كيف سيقومون بالتصدي لمثل هذه المسائل الحساسة رغم اختلاف الآراء في هذا الموضوع. كان إحدى، وأنا أضع على الشاشة هذه ال3 أمثلة والتي يعني استخدمت كنموذج للعب الادوار بشكل بارع وحقيقي يعني ادوا بشكل جميل. احدى التحديات كانت ماذا ستفعل عندما يكون بعض اولياء الامور يرفضوا تطعيم ابنائهم وبناتهم في المدرسه ضد فيروس كورونا، بينما المدرسه تطلب ان يكون هناك تطعيم ضد الفيروس. فطبعا هذا موضوع له حساسيات، وبعض الاباء وربما لا والامهات يرفضون ذلك لاسباب علميه من وجهه نظرهم، بعضهم لاسباب تقليديه وثقافيه. مشكله تحدي مهني اخر او ethical challenge اخر كان ماذا تفعل لو ان بعض الطالبات لاسباب مختلفه يرفضن المشاركه في انشطه مدرسيه مجتمعيه تتطلب الغناء الجماعي. مساله ممكن تحدث في مجتمعات كثيره، وهذه هو نوع المشاكل التي يواجهها الشباب الى حد كبير، ونحتاج الدعم فيه من الجهات التعليميه. ثم كانت القصه الثالثه تتعلق بفصل بعض الطلاب النابغين والمنتمين الى فئه اجتماعيه مهمشه لعدم دفع المصاريف المدرسيه. كلها امور حقيقيه واقعيه، وكان الهدف من استخدام ذلك في تدريبنا مع الاساتذه والاستاذات هو ان نقدم لهم نماذج من الواقع حقيقيه، ونرى كيف يمكن لهم ان يتعاملوا مع مثل هذه التحديات بناء على ما تعلموه في اطار المنهجيه التحويليه. وارجع مره اخرى كما ذكر ريتشارد وميري ايضا ان التغيير الاساسي هو التغيير الذي يحدث من الداخل، وهذا يقودني الى النقطه الاخيره وهي تطلعاتنا الى المستقبل. وانا اقترح ان اطلب من اريجاتو ومن يونسكو إكبا ان يستمر هذا المشروع، وان يستمر باساليب متنوعه. ايضا اعود مره اخرى لما قاله ريتشارد من ان نصل الى الشباب والشابات ليس فقط في اطار المدرسه الرسميه، وانما ايضا نصل لهم في اطار التعلم الغير رسمي non formal education، وان نصل لهم بالطريقه الملائمه للواقع. اعتقد ان فكره التدريب على Yes.
Professor, could you please wrap up in the next 2 minutes?
I will wrap up in actually in 1 minute.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
فأنا أعتقد أن استمرارية المشروع هي أساسية نظرا لنجاح المشروع بالفعل. أعتقد لابد أن يكون هناك نوع من تطوير النماذج التدريبية حتى يكون هناك تدريب للمدرب على مستوى الشباب أنفسهم، وليس فقط داخل المدرسة الرسمية ولكن خارج المدرسة الرسمية أيضا. ثم أخيرا أقترح أن يكون هناك تأسيس لتواصل ما بين الأساتذة والأساتذة، ويحدث بالفعل من كل البلاد التي تم المشروع فيها 25 دولة في أفريقيا، وأيضا ما بين الشباب والشابات من كل هذه البلاد. أشكركم جميعا وبارك الله فيكم على هذا العمل العظيم. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Professor. I don't want to interrupt you because the ideas you've been sharing were so insightful. Yes? Oh, sorry. I was in another channel. I'm sorry. Is that okay now? Thank you very much,
you are
Professor.
Very fine.
Yes, I didn't want to interrupt you because you've been sharing insightful ideas. Really, thank you very much for the action that you have been conducted in your region under your leadership. And thank you also for the recommendation, among which creating conducive environment for better involvement, experience sharing, and involving all African countries in the process of applying the transformative pedagogy. Participants have already started reacting to your presentation, and hopefully you will have the opportunity to react to that. Thank you very much. Now we go to the next session, which is an open plenary discussion. My colleague, Mrs. Eleonora Mura, will be conducting that together with Dr. Eleonora.
Yes, thank you, Sal, and thank you to all the speakers, but also to all the participants that have joined today and that have had a very active chat with many concrete recommendations for strengthening the role of teachers, for youth inclusion, policy recommendations. So thank you very much for having been so active today. Xavier, I would like for you to, to show again, to share your screen and show again the results of the Mentimeter so that we can go over together the great suggestions that we had. But on the top of my mind, I recall there were talks about increasing dialogue, increasing opportunities for intercultural learning, creation of peace clubs and places of aggregation, inclusive curriculum. So really, thank you for joining this effort, and in 2 or 3 words, in all languages of Africa and of this workshop, trying to really put together those concrete strategies that you think should really help today in education, to transform education and to make education as a force that can really contribute to build peace. First and foremost, inside the heart of women and men, as we saw, peace begins with us. So we have to articulate this process of internal transformation, and then with others. So through community, proactive engagement, professional support, and all the wonderful strategies that you have outlined. This is the moment for everyone to really take the floor and share and articulate more the recommendations that you might have to include youth more in these peace efforts in education, but also in general to make sure that education is responding to the challenges of today and this really supporting transformation and the construction of peaceful societies. So Xavier, if I could ask you now to go to the Google Jamboard. So this is a tool, as we said, that we're using to collect recommendations. You don't have to worry about going in and type it yourself. Xavier will support us. And really, this is what we want to debate in plenary with you today. So how can we enhance youth engagement and participation for peace? How can we make sure schools, educations can be more inclusive and can really be places that can contribute to build peaceful and cohesive societies? So the floor is yours. You can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and take the floor. So please join us in this conversation. Now I know the chat has been very active, the Mentimeter is very active, so I have no doubt you will join this conversation in a very dynamic way in this last segment of today's experience sharing, that is this plenary discussion. So over to you. Please, our delegate from Uganda, Francis, you can take the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really enjoyed all the session from yesterday and today. And I would like to share some few of the recommendation. And first of all, we have been we are the beneficiaries of the training of Unesco Ikiba last year, and we're able also to carry out 2 projects. One was in Rhino camp, refugee camp, and this time we also did a training also the same with university students. And it was so remarkable achievement that we have been doing, and over 15 universities participated from Kampala Metropolitan and major university, let me say government university and private sector were involved. And my recommendation is, according to that question, we would like to encourage that the UNESCO ICBA and all other partners to include youth in such trainings, especially youth-led training. When you use the approach of youth to youth approach, that's how we were able to use the training in Kampala, Uganda, and we're able to deliver a proactive and practical bit of the training, and we're able to relate it with the challenges that youth are facing in Kampala, Uganda, basically the university student, because most of the university students and other youth are engaging in violence in Kampala, Uganda. And we're able to touch them with several major topics that we're able to discuss with them. When you look at the mediation, you look at the conflict transformation, and we're able to share so many things with them. And the opportunities we're able to identify where young people are so positive, that we have positive response from young people, especially from universities. Almost like 200 and 500 students were willingly to participate in our program. And due to our budget, we're able to train 100 students from 15 universities. That's the opportunity that youth in Kampala are turning up for this transformative pedagogy. Then the challenges we faced were like a bit, like, let me look at the mental health. We identified the challenges of mental health among the youth. Then you look at the disability of the youth, especially those with deafness and blindness. We need to look at that. We need to address that. Then the sustainability of the training, especially the youth that we are training, the trainers. So it will be able to that we need to identify possible ways to maintain and engage the youth that you have been training. There's a lot I can share, but allow me to give chance to other people also to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, from this very concrete testimony from Uganda and from these very concrete recommendations. Indeed, when we explore the ladder of participation in the transformative pedagogy approach, we always say that the best cooperation, it's really the co-creation, the co-management, the co-implementation between adults and youth. And this is really the best way to create something together. And so even when we speak about trainings, this model that you presented where young people were leading together with adults facilitator is really an ideal model to reach out to university and to bring and scale up the approach, the transformative approach. Thank you very much for bringing this to us. I see also Mendes Silva, your hand is raised. You have the floor.
Oh, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Please go ahead. I think now you muted yourself. Mendes Silva, yes, now we hear you again. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. From Namibia here, I'll speak from the classroom point of view, how we can engage this youth, the younger generation, into peace building. It has to start from the classroom. I think for being a teacher, we need to move away from the old traditional way of teaching to more of like learner center. So learner need to be engaged, need to be included in this teaching practice of whereby you give the chances to learners to be free or be flexible, to be more involved in the teaching and classroom, not more of like all the time it's just a teacher talking, giving the explanation to learners, but we need to give them a chance to exercise their democratic rights and teach to other learners. My second point is maybe the approaches that we use as teachers. We should be more flexible to learners. I saw one recommendation that has to do with consultations. So we should not always expect a learner to ask questions in classes, but also wherever they meet us, be it in the street or be it within the school premises or school ground. You should be ready as a teacher, be flexible to learner, attend to their problems. Like that, you are inviting peace within them. But if you are a teacher and you are arrogant, then it will become a problem. You are creating a big problem. That learner might end up leaving school, and then he or she will be the main problem that you face in the. So with that, I think that's the few little opinion that I have to share with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you to our colleague. And these are indeed two very important aspects, making the learning more horizontal, whereby the teacher, the professor really becomes a facilitator and the knowledge is co-created. This is very important to implement the transformative pedagogy approach. So thank you very much for this note and this reminder. I see Joel Shako. your hand is up. You have the floor. Joel, can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, okay. I'm Joel Shako from Congo, but I would like to speak in French because I'm better in French. Can you allow me to speak in French?
Yes, absolutely. The interpreters are ready. Go ahead, Joel.
Ok, ok. Merci pour l'opportunité. Et ce que j'aimerais partager et pour renforcer l'engagement et la participation des jeunes en faveur de la paix, j'aimerais, à ce que je sache, à mon humble avis, je pense qu'on devrait d'abord commencer par la sensibilisation, et parce que beaucoup de jeunes dans notre communauté, surtout en Afrique, sont encore dans l'ignorance, ils ne savent pas les rôles qu'ils ont à jouer dans la lutte contre la prévention de la violence et aussi la lutte contre l'extrémisme violent. Donc, à mon avis, je pense qu'on devrait d'abord commencer à sensibiliser la jeunesse, les aider à comprendre, à les conscientiser afin qu'ils puissent comprendre les rôles qu'ils ont à jouer dans la communauté en tant qu'acteurs ou activistes de l'éducation pour apporter aussi leur soutien dans la lutte contre la prévention des conflits. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Joël, pour cette remarque. And this is indeed also what we have heard during the intergenerational dialogue between Mary from the Kenyan NatCom and Richard, where they reminded that it is very important indeed to build the capacity of learners, to build the capacity of young people to really be actors of peace, and how important it is that the education system can cater for those skills and those attitudes that can really contribute to peace building. I see Ruth, you have your hand up, so over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and all protocol observed. From Zambia, we had a youth project which we conducted called Youth Movement for Peace, strengthening youth participation in peace building and conflict prevention through transformative action for peace in universities and colleges of Zambia. So our main targets were the youth in universities and colleges. One of the recommendations that were made even in our report during after our project, we need sustainable systems of funding to facilitate quality leadership for peace building activities in educational institutions. So there has to be a decentralized system which will help the leaders that are also trained in peace building programs to continue running activities in these universities and the colleges in Zambia, so as to strengthen the spread or cascading programs among the youth in our respective countries. Then there is also increasing the youth participation and sustainability of peace action programs, create a national coordination committee for peace clubs in universities and colleges. So we have created the peace clubs, but what is the after? So there is need to ensure that there is a coordinating team which will run even at national level programs that will create or spread the information about peace education so that the youth should highly be engaged in these programs. Then there is also develop some public policy on peace education and peace and prevention of violence extremism among the youth. So working without a public policy makes the work difficult. So there is need to develop some policies under peace education. Then also create capacity building by training appointed peace club leaders. Also create workshops, youth engagement programs such as a peace summit, exchange, which would promote exchange of knowledge, and also expand networks and learn from one another, and also build on social media networks or social media handles, such as opening pages on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and creating peace club WhatsApp groups, which we have done in Zambia. We have about 3 clubs that have been, 3 main peace WhatsApp groups that have been created, where we are communicating and discussing different issues that about peace education. So, and then one of the other challenges that we had, the challenges that we had were limited funding, and that made less numbers to participate. And then also we need also to ensure that we strengthen linkages between institution management, community, and peace clubs. Then also there is also limited government support to formal and informal peace education programs. So there is also need to work with the governments in our respective countries so that the government leaders should be able to give support to peace education programs. Then the opportunities that were identified, one, we created strong networks for peace building programs by creating social media handles. I've given out that one. Acquired more knowledge about peace education and peace prevention and prevention of violent extremism, and shared peace building skills and ideas. Created room for further in-person engagements with the Peace Club members in universities and colleges of Zambia. So when there is a physical meeting, there is more engagement because people will have the freedom to express themselves and share the knowledge. Then promoted partnerships and created suitable networks for peace building. So for the youth to be engaged, there is need for suitable networks for peace building activities or peace education activities, such as webinars, youth peace summits, workshops, sports, and all other social activities. Thank you so much. Those are the points that were in summary.
Thank you for our colleague from Zambia. This is very, very relevant. I would like particularly to highlight, as you said, the use of social media and really entering the spaces where young people interact to disseminate positive narratives of peace. I think it's very important to meet the young people and the learners where they are, to have this flexibility sometimes of going out of the classroom and really in the community, in the spaces where young people are interacting, to talk about peace, to do peace activities. And as somebody also in the chat work, so that we build these networks at the local level for working for peace. I see, Pietro, you have your hand up. So without further ado, you can take the floor. And then I invite also the other participants of raising their hands so they can also share their recommendations with us. Pietro, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laura. I would say congratulations to the countries and everyone doing what we are doing to advance sustainable peace in our respective countries. Collaboration is indeed important. Multilateral approach is indeed important. Peace education is equally important, but then I consider these things, especially peace education, as being secondary to the issues of violent extremism in Africa. African youths are naturally peaceful people, and as human beings, we are all reflection of our societies. So I would like to see interventions that pay closer attention to the root causes of violent extremism. And these root causes are not far-fetched from frustration and aggression, poverty, hunger. The list is endless, and we know these things. So when we try to build peace amongst youth that are supposedly frustrated, amongst youth that are supposedly impoverished, it makes the work twice as hard, and it makes it more difficult, and they easily relapse and go back to violence that seems to be paying more and putting food on the table. So I would like to see UNESCO, IGBA, other well-meaning organizations pay closer attention to human-centric solutions to peace building. Beyond the peace transformative pedagogy and education, we need to also look at empowerment in terms of skill acquisition, in terms of capacity building, in terms of making some of these youths economically stable, so that violent extremism wouldn't be an option or wouldn't be a choice they have to make for survival. So it's not easy to build peace in a chaotic environment, in an environment that they are not sure of where they will see their next meal if they don't resort to violence. So I think while building peace, we should tie these things up to interventions that will assure them about their economic space in the society. I think that's all I have to say, Laura. Thank you very much.
Yes, Pietro, thank you for this comment. This is very important in this approach. We always try to understand the context, to understand the contextual needs and the root causes, as you said, but then it's really important that education and that this transformed education in the 21st century really responds also to the economic needs in terms of entrepreneurial skills, in terms of vocational skills, in terms of alternatives, as you said, that can pull people away from the factors that are inciting them to join violent groups where they can indeed find an economic reward that sometimes is not possible for them to have in the society. So this is a very crucial point, and we have to connect the dots, and education is really to provide economic opportunities and be more linked to those contextual needs and to those skills that are needed to have a dignified job and dignified livelihood in the 21st century. So thank you for this very important comment. I would like to invite other delegates to also raise their hand and join this conversation today. So please go ahead and share with us, unmute yourself and share with us in this plenary. Please feel free to also give your interventions in French or Arabic. The interpreters will help us out with that. Rosemary, I see you have touched upon a very relevant recommendation in the chat. Maybe could I call you up to articulate this in terms of action research, as I think this very much connects with Pietro's comments of understanding the context and the needs.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I had 2 points to contribute to that. One of it is that as we want to enhance the engagement of young people, I think their participation in also analyzing some of the causes of maybe conflict and of the issues that destabilize peace from their perspective as young people, if this is identified by them, like involving them in action research, then it would be good for them to use these findings to engage in intergenerational dialogues with the policymakers, decision makers, and leaders, but also young people from different other areas. Because once they use this, these are issues that they have identified, and as they're identifying this, they are also participating to bring it to the table for the other stakeholders. Then the second point that I would like to comment on is that already in the institutions and in the schools, there are co-curricular activities. And I know that some schools have already put in place like peace clubs, but then I would like this to go beyond the peace clubs. How can the various clubs that exist, for instance, in institutions and various forums that exist, how can issues around peace be integrated in the discussions outside the classroom? Already one colleague has mentioned within the classroom where teachers are using those transformative pedagogy, but then also outside the classroom, how can these clubs be able to promote that so that you know, the whole school or the whole institution gets involved in the process. Thank you. Those are the 2 points that I wanted to share as recommendations.
Thank you, Rosemary. And these are really very relevant, and they can help us to find also concrete strategies and strategies that can be flexible and adaptable to different contexts. Eunice, I see you have your hand up, so the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mina. I just want to reiterate what Richard and my fellow colleagues have said, that we need the meaningful engagement of youth in peace processes, because it's evident that youth are already involved in peace activities and are now agents of change instead of, despite being labeled as the agents of conflict. So combining this with what Pietro has said, economic empowerment of youth, because issues of anger, unemployment, these are the things that motivate youth to violence. So if you combine all these and we look at food security, national security, and misplaced policies, and now we bring youth through capacity development to give them skills, knowledge on how to engage meaningfully in the decision-making platforms, to influence policies so that institutions and regional bodies like UNESCO, ICBA, AU, if they can prioritize policies in youth, on youth agendas, to ensure that youth are meaningfully engaged and they're there at decision-making level, so that the youth agendas are prioritized and are implemented. It's not just more on policy influence, but ensuring that most of these policies are implemented at local levels, both at regional, national levels, and at local governments, to make youth being engaged in peace building activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eunice. And this is indeed, I mean, to formalize those networks, to formalize that access in order for young people to contribute and really channel the energy, the positive contribution, the skills in a formalized way, so that also we can be inclusive in the participation. I mean, Sauda wrote this also in the chat, so we have to be inclusive of everyone. So those formal channels are very useful to raise awareness and to empower young people to contribute from the local to the regional and also to the global level. I see Nexon, also you have your hand up. Please, you can unmute yourself and take the floor. Nexon, over to you.
Yes, good evening, all of you, and I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yes, we hear you loud. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, all of you, and I'm glad to be here. I'm Nixon Tumwebaze from Uganda. I'm a student at Kampala International University. I'm a leader of Students Guild Union. I have attended the UNESCO meetings, at least 5 of them this year. There is something I wanted you to request from you people. We are putting much of emphasis on students who are in institutions, but I come from some of the villages, deep villages. I don't know if you're getting me. Hello?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Yes, I come from deep villages. I come from a tribe which is one of the minorities in Uganda, which are Basongora by tribe. They are always in conflicts and fighting with the other tribes on things concerning land, sharing of political positions in government, in Kasese district. But it is unfortunate that every fight that happens, they are the youth who die. Now, I also have a prayer, and I request UNESCO, if you can now take this teaching to even those youth who are not educated, who are there in the villages, who are only seen on fights only. They don't have anywhere to make decision making, but they are only called upon to fight. It is experience, I've seen it, I've grown up there, and I'm still seeing it. To the extent that I even call we people who are in universities to go back down to fight in days of cultivation. For example, now it is a seasonal area. So sorry, it is a seasonal situation where cultivators must cultivate. Now, they are being called upon from these institutions to go back and fight the cultivators. And you find we are losing a lot of youth lives in Uganda. So I also have a prayer that since we are working as a team, we also see those youth who are unemployed, who did go to school, but they are ground on these issues, who are only encouraged of fighting. There are some brothers and sisters of mine whom I know that they are only, the only thing they know it is fighting. So they think fighting is a solution for everything. So I beg to submit, friends.
Thank you very much, Nexon, for this very practical example again, and also for your engagement as a youth leader and driving force of peace in your university. And thank you for this reminder about also the importance of inclusion and dialogue. Arfang du Sénégal, je vois que vous avez votre main levée. Vous pouvez prendre la parole si vous voulez. Arfang, the floor is yours.
Allô? Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour, on vous entend, ça va?
Arfang Sek, inspecteur de l'éducation de la ville de Thiès au Sénégal. Je voudrais donner une petite contribution sur comment renforcer l'engagement et la participation des jeunes en faveur de la paix. À mon avis, si nous renforçons et nous installons et nous renforçons une éducation au développement durable dans toutes les écoles et à tous les niveaux dès le bas âge, si nous faisons comprendre à tout le monde, aux jeunes, que la planète dans laquelle nous vivons, nous l'avons héritée de nos ancêtres et nous devons bien la protéger pour donner ça aux générations futures. Il y a d'autres activités à développer, telles que la protection de la nature, par exemple, en installant dans les écoles les gouvernements scolaires. Et dès le bas âge, préparer les jeunes à être des citoyens du monde, mais des éco-citoyens, protecteurs de la nature. Il y a dans le passé, dans nos écoles, une pratique qui était là, qui était très intéressante, c'est la correspondance scolaire. Aujourd'hui, nous vivons à l'ère du numérique et que les gens écrivent de moins en moins, mais on peut bien favoriser la correspondance scolaire en faisant des échanges internationaux, interpays, favorisant ainsi la connaissance mutuelle des uns et des autres. Voilà une petite contribution que j'ai voulu apporter depuis le Sénégal, tout en disant que dans les programmes que nous avons, dans nos curricula ici dans les écoles sénégalaises, une bonne part est donnée à l'éducation au développement durable. Et ça, c'est une contribution pour l'installation de la paix. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Arfang, for these very good points. Indeed, it is important to connect with education for sustainable development, also with global citizenship education, and indeed to foster these peer-to-peer, intercultural, international exchanges. And to this point, we want to remind to everyone that at present, 22 countries have joined the transformative pedagogy approaches. There are 22 ministries of education that have really contributed young people. So this is very much an international and a pan-African effort. And as Arfang said, this brings a deep added value to this program. Ikara, I see your hand is up. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone, all the participants and all the organizers of this meeting. I'm Ikan Winfred. I'm from Uganda. I'm also a law student at Kampala International University. And it's the second time I'm attending this meeting. I attended yesterday. One of the recommendations I would put in place, for example, our youth, I would say, have actually given up, because when you look at the leaders are not leading by example. The people on top, politically, socially and everything. So I would suggest that let our leaders motivate the youth to be peacemakers, to build peace worldwide, to live in peace with one another, because our leaders are not leading the youth by example. And we can see how the youth have given up. Even when you preach peace, they choose violence. So I would recommend that our leaders, first of all, lead by example. Then also I would put up the point of the practical approach. This is maybe going in the field, sending the youth in the field, have a one-on-one conversation. I like what a former president has said, especially in the villages. I think these people do not get access to this kind of information. So we need to take this information to the village, and we can only do this by going there physically, having an interactive conversation with the people in the villages. Not only in the villages, even the youth in town here, most of them are not aware of this kind of practice, peace, and we need to extend this to the youth, physical, and also from the physical approach, an interactive approach. We can get feedback that is very useful, and we can share it and come up with better ways of implementing peace in our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ikara. And these are very, very important points indeed. I mean, leading by example, this is also one of the building blocks of the transformative pedagogy. It's about role modeling. You can infuse, foster, and nurture values and attitudes only when you role model them. You cannot really teach people how to be peaceful by words, but you have to be peaceful yourself. So this is, again, a very important reminder of this and of the physical presence, indeed, the physical interactions in the physical spaces. Thank you. I would like to hand over now to Saliu for the closing remarks for today. I know there is a lot of excitement, and many of you have probably more recommendations to share. I would invite you to do so in the chat. As you can see, Xavier is collecting all recommendations from the chat and the recommendations that you shared in the plenary. So this is a work in progress. This is only our second day. We will continue these conversations indeed. But because I know everybody's extremely pressed with time, Sal, over to you for some remarks.
Yes, thank you very much, Eleonora. I would like to thank all participants for their very interactive contribution to the success of this webinar. The ideas are very insightful, and there are so many that it is very difficult to pick the most essential one, because all of them are very, very, very relevant. But what I can notice is that there are a lot of recommendations that can be classified at three levels: the political one, the pedagogical one, and the communication aspect also. At the political level, what has come repeatedly, recurrently, is the necessity to develop policies and institutions to enable enhancement of the well-being of young people and consider the issues of young people. At the pedagogical level, there is a necessity to diversify and contextualize the approach and methodology with a lot of flexibility, and also consider the co-creation approach by giving more voice to students, including in action research, because the young leaders must be involved in all the process and involve them in all the activities. Promote inclusive and participatory approach by considering marginalized groups and responding to emergency situations. Also insist on the capacity building activities by developing continuous development plan for teachers and for young leaders to build their capacities in order to address all the challenges related to peace building and prevention of violence extremism. In terms of communication, it would be great that in each country the initiatives are decentralized to reach the maximum target possible. encourage creation of youth club, and conduct activities related to education for sustainable development and education for peace and for culture. Enhance structures for participation of the youth. Promote intercultural communication and dialogue the maximum possible. Develop diversified communication strategies through a better use of traditional based media and social media, and create also enabling environment to better harness and capacitate youth leaders and educational experts, among whom, of course, you have the young teachers, so that they are in the front of the issues affecting them. So these are some recommendations that I have jotted down among many which are very relevant. I would like to thank all participants for these contributions, and would like to invite all of you to the last but not least session of this 3-day webinar, which is scheduled for tomorrow. Thank you very much again, and we'll be delighted to see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, our interpreters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye from Zambia.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Jërëjëf depuis le Sénégal. Jërëjëf.
Bye, everyone.
Arfan.
Jërëjëf Sali.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Yes. This is